So why don't you try now? There we
I
go.
got it.
It's up now. Perfect.
I got it now. Okay, great. Okay.
Ready to go?
There
Okay,
it
can
is.
folks, will they be able to hear me if they're
They
on?
can hear you if you're
Okay,
close to
cool.
here. That's right.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is the first meeting for the implementation of traffic calming infrastructure on Oakwood Ave. The goal of this is to help address some of the unsafe speeding that we're seeing in the area. I actually used to live right off Oakwood on the Net Port, and I recall very vividly how some folks like to approach Oakwood with the hills and the excessive speeding and whatnot. So I think this is something that's like super duper needed. And I definitely want to thank Councilmember Van Rees for being here today as well. I know she's been working toward this becoming a reality as well. I've done a few of these now, and the basic process is we all come together, we talk with the engineers and the consultants, we come up with a design that we think is going to work for the neighborhood. And then basically it goes to a vote for folks that are on Oakwood. And we have to get a certain threshold. They'll get into the exact details of how that'll work and whatnot. But basically, we'll come up with a design, and then that's based on, they're going to have a preliminary design today, but they're here to hear feedback from y'all and from the folks who live in this area. See, oh, is there an issue? Is there something that maybe we didn't catch? Maybe we need to consider this. They'll come back with another design, and then if we say, we like this, then we'll put it to the vote, and then once it gets approved, then we move toward implementation, actually getting this stuff out into the neighborhood. So that's the general process. And did I miss anything?
That's great.
Great.
Perfect.
I'll turn it over to Amy. Is it
Birch?
Amy Birch, who has worked with me on a couple of these other traffic calming programs in the district. So I'll turn it over to y'all, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Amy Birch, and with me I have Eleni, and we're traffic engineers and consultants on behalf of NDOT. So we're here to talk with you about the traffic calming program. And like I said, we're recording this meeting, and it'll be available on Metro's YouTube channel. So anyone that's joining us on the online version, if you have questions, you can let us know that. We'll pause for questions at times during this presentation to let you do that, and the people in the room here will be able to hear you. So, and thanks everyone for your patience as we got set up. So we're going to start off with some of the basics about traffic calming. What is traffic calming, and how do we approach it? And that's with the 3 E's: the education, enforcement, and engineering. Our group specifically is addressing the engineering piece of traffic calming, which is how do we change or modify the street to slow cars down, to slow drivers down on the street. So where do we apply traffic calming? That's on residential streets like Oakwood Avenue, and these are the physical solutions to reduce speeding. And this is part of Nashville's Vision Zero commitment, which is a commitment to and a goal for 0 deaths on roadways. Again, this is a street program, so we look at street by street basis. So we're not necessarily looking at a whole broad neighborhood, because we want to spend the funds that we have for traffic calming on streets that need it the most. There are several other programs within Metro and resources within Metro to access. Hub Nashville. Is everyone familiar with the Hub and how to report requests for services? No? Okay, so Hub Nashville, Councilmember, you probably got a great spiel about the Hub, if you want to add that.
A little bit about the Hub. So there's a couple of ways to access the Hub system, but this was put in place, I don't know, 8-10 years ago. Okay. Well, it's basically a one-stop shop for non-emergency issues that you're having. So if you've got a pothole, if somebody has dumped trace somewhere, issues like that, things that you don't need to call the police about, you can pick up your phone and you can dial 311, and it'll connect you to the Hub system. You can also use a smartphone or a computer to go to hub.Nashville.gov. You can also, there's another way.
There's an app. There's an app.
Smartphone, you can download an app that'll allow you to like take a photo of the issue. And like I said, this is kind of, it's, you can email your council member as well, but like this is a great first place if you trash it and getting picked up. Any little thing like that where nobody's in immediate danger, nothing like that. It's kind of the one-stop shop that it says there. So 311 on your phone, that's the easiest way. You just pick up the phone, dial 311, you'll connect with the operator. But if you have a smartphone, you have the laptop, you can go to hub.Nashville.gov and put it's a great system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really great. Water services, all those things, not just NDOT related. So move on to sort of our program. It's a high demand program. There's a lot of streets, a lot of residents in Nashville that really want traffic calming on their streets. So just to give you some perspective, in our recent window of applications, we had 426 neighborhood streets that requested traffic calming. And so we have a process in which we select those, and we did 24 neighborhood projects that round. And NDOT does 2 selections of around 24 or 25 a year. So we're trying to do 50 a year, 50 projects. So how do we narrow down from that great demand for traffic calming into those projects? We have a prioritization process, and it's based on data points, and it's on a 100-point scoring scale, and we measure 4 major criteria to select which streets have the greatest need for traffic calming. And 50% of the score is based on speeds. So we go out and we measure the speeds on all these streets that have requested traffic calming and say they have a problem with speeding, and we compare that speed that we measure with the posted speed limit. And so when we look at speeds in traffic engineering and traffic calming, we're typically looking at the 85th percentile speed, and so we measure that, compare that speed to the posted speed limit. We also look at crash history, and we look at active transportation. Active transportation are, whether or not there are sidewalks on the street, or bike lanes, nearby greenways, bus routes and bus stops. And then there's also neighborhood destinations as part of the score, which is we're looking for pedestrian destinations. Is the street close to a school or a park? University, things and places where we think people would want to be walking from neighborhood streets to and from. So that goes into our process as well. So here's a picture or some pictures of what it looks like on Oakwood Avenue. And so there's kind of 2 different cross sections on Oakwood. The picture on the left is closer to East Trinity. That's where it's more narrow. It's about 22 feet of pavement. It's got centerline striping, and then not really any shoulders. And then as you go further north on the street, this picture is closer to the Oakwood Flats, where it widens out. The lanes are about 15 feet each. And then there's also this white stripe for that people park in on street parking. But there's still the centerline stripes. That whole cross section width, curb to curb or edge to edge, is about 40 feet. Then this is just a map view of Oakwood and the section of Oakwood that we're talking about, and a couple of data points. But the posted speed limit on Oakwood is 25 miles per hour, and that's because it's a local street in Nashville. And then we measured the daily traffic to be just over 3,000 cars a day. And then the 85th percentile speed was measured at 42. So the 85th percentile speed is the speed that 85% of the cars that we measured at that time are going that speed or below. That means that 15% of drivers are actually going above that 42 miles per hour. And again, the speed limit is 25. So you can kind of easily see how this street got selected from that criteria. Also, there's a WeGo transit route that travels on parts of Oakwood Avenue from Sladen to Bullock. It does its turnaround, basically. That's the end of the loop, and it turns around down by the or up by the park. So that's how Oakwood was selected. It was part of that selection process. And now I'm going to talk about some common traffic calming measures that we use. Vertical measures we use, and we find them to be the most effective in slowing vehicles down because they physically require drivers to slow down as they travel over these devices. So these are some pictures of different configurations of speed cushions on the street. Speed cushions are really like lumps in the roadway. They have these gaps that make it not as impactful for emergency vehicles to straddle. Yes, you have a question? No, it's all right.
I think because people drive their car.
Oh, the gaps. The gap. They are 6 feet wide, so that's meant to be wide enough that a typical passenger vehicle can't really straddle them completely. They can do one wheel on and one wheel off, and sometimes people do that. And one of the benefits, like I said, though, is that it's not as impactful for the emergency vehicle response. But I understand your comment there. We can configure these in different arrangements based on the width of the street and so forth. So these examples are showing where we place the one in each lane, where the street was narrower, or in this configuration, there's 3 across. So in the one on your left, a driver would be intended to drive one wheel on each of these, like the center and the outside one. Yes, question? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. For anyone on the virtual, I'll just repeat the comment was that they would like to see some alternatives to the speed cushions because there's a lot of people using this street on mopeds and scooters, motorcycles. Mm-hmm. Well, a little bit more about speed cushions, but we do have some other alternatives that I'll be getting to. They're really designed for about 20 to 25 miles per hour. For this street, we would probably do them 10.5 feet long. That's the length you traverse them. But again, they're 6 feet wide and 3 inches high. And we would do them in multiple locations. We typically do them in a series so that you're not encouraged to drive slow over them one time and then not have to encounter them again. So we put them in a series and spaced out anywhere between 300 to 500 feet apart so that it gains a consistent speed along the length of the street. That's really our goal. We also try to avoid driveways so that there's not one, immediately behind your driveway, but they'll be spaced out a little bit away from driveways. We include warning signage, and this is typical for most of our vertical devices as well. They would be accompanied with some warning signage like you see here. Some angles of how these look on the ground. This one on the left is 10.5 feet long, and so it has this flatter section in the middle. And you can see kind of how they're about 3 inches high. Then we have speed tables. So this is like what's on Jones in a couple of locations, which is not far from Oakwood. I'm sure you've driven over them several times. So this is a speed table, and they still ramp up on either side, but they have a longer, flatter section in the middle. So the whole length of the device is 14 feet long. So this is a little bit smoother of a ride over them, but they're still effective in slowing vehicles down, and probably more effective with the motorcycles because there's not the gaps to go between and shoot the gap. Yeah. And then we have signage and markings that we also incorporate into our plans in some locations. So the picture on the left is the radar feedback sign. You've probably seen those, but they're posted with a speed limit sign, and then show your speed when you approach. And if you're speeding above the posted speed limit, then it will flash. On the right is a picture of some zigzag striping that's also been installed on Jones near that vertical curvature at the intersection with the stop sign. And so that's something you're probably familiar with seeing. We also, in this program, will do lane narrowing sometimes when we have wider lanes. This picture on the left is just striping out the shoulder with some channelized hatch striping there. And then on the right is a little bit different, but it was kind of a lane conversion and a road diet. This is actually a picture of 51st Avenue North in the Nations, where it used to be 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction, and the pavement width was reallocated to 1 lane in each direction, center turn lane, and a cycle track on one side. So traffic circle, this is more of a intersection treatment. And these are just round raised circles in the middle, installed in the middle of intersections, so that they are meant to be driven similar to like a roundabout where you drive counterclockwise around them. So the horizontal deflection of these circles at intersections requires drivers to slow down to negotiate through the intersection. Chicanes, this is a different treatment. We haven't used it a whole lot, but there are some places in Nashville that have chicanes where we modify the design of the street to add curvature to the street, so that and these pictures are done with either parked vehicles alternating side to side of the street, like on Fairfax in kind of the Midtown Vanderbilt area. This picture on the right, there's these bump outs, curb extensions that will change the alignment of the center line, and that slows vehicles. So those are our measures. Not all measures that we have are applicable to all streets. We have to use our experience to figure out which, and characteristics of the street to figure out which measures are the most appropriate for each street. Then I'll talk about our program flow a little bit. So this is an application process. There was an application that someone applied for requesting traffic calming on Oakwood Avenue. That happened maybe a couple of years ago or something. And then the prioritization process, so that the street was selected through the process we already spoke about. Then we have our first meeting, which is what we're doing now. And what we'll do is we give you some updates about, how this program works and our concept, which we'll get to. And then from that point, we will, once we've heard from you about our concept, we go back, we make some adjustments to that. That's our design phase that comes next. We put a more detailed plan together based on this feedback. And then we'll come back to you at a second meeting, and you'll get the advertisement same as you did for this meeting. And we'll present that updated plan to you and go over the next steps, which will be the balloting phase. So after meeting 2, if we're all happy with the plan, we can move into the ballot phase. And that's where we learn or make sure that we have some support for the project to move forward. And then after the ballot, we move into construction. And the construction is really ordering the materials, which takes a few months, and then getting those installed, which takes another few months.
What's the typical timeline between application and construction?
Application to construction.
Or I guess meeting 1 to construction once the
Meeting 1 to
chosen.
construction. it varies based on how quickly we can get meetings together and everything, but typically we're looking at about 12 months probably from
Okay.
meeting one to construction completion.
Thank you.
So the ballot phase is, this is where, again, where we get the support from the neighborhood. We mail ballots out. And so what we're looking for is 2/3 majority of the property owners that respond to the ballot and vote are in favor of the project. So it's really based on, voter turnout and what those votes are.
If I could just say, so to put that another way,
Yeah.
only the folks who vote count. So
Yes.
if you get the card in the mail and you decide you don't want to vote, it's not like you're a no. We just need 60% of the folks that do respond to vote yes. So you don't have to go out. It used to be that we had to go around and knock on doors and beg people to sign and beg people to vote, but now it's just, if somebody's not interested in voting yes or no, they just don't count.
Right, right. That was a very challenging for a lot of streets and neighborhoods to do that, that wet signature on a petition and go find their neighbors and property owners because, a lot of property owners may be landlords that are absentee and not responding to those types of issues. So, yes, it is. If you vote, your vote counts. For or against, you get a chance to vote for or against the plan. And if we have 66% of those that vote are for the project, then it moves forward. So similar to the cards you got for this meeting announcement, there'll be postcards for the ballot, and it'll have a QR code giving you access to the online ballot. You'll have a unique ID on that card, and that card will. So that's how we can make sure that we don't have duplicate votes. And it's a finite window. That's the other thing that's so great about the ballot is that it starts and it closes. We have an end date of when this, we have a result for whether the neighborhood wants to move forward with it. Yes,
So
question.
the voting is for the people who live on, or the voting is for the streets that's off of Oakwood.
Great question. So the question was, who gets to vote, basically? And that is the property owners on the affected street. So it's not the streets that come off of Oakwood. It's just the properties that are on that street.
That affects the traffic affects all the side streets too. We all on the side streets, so we don't even need to be here.
Well, we want to hear from you as well, but right, the vote is for the property owners on the street. And that's not meant to necessarily leave anybody out. It's just that those are the ones that are most affected.
Here was right at the end of our street. Yeah, it was Oakwood and Slayton, but it was right at the intersection of our street. So it really don't matter whether we vote for or against it. Because all those apartments and stuff, all that traffic, it affects us. When we trying to pull out of our street, it's like you gotta race across because they coming down that hill so fast. But our vote don't count.
If I may say that, it's true that only the folks on Oakwood where the speed bumps would go get to vote. It is, in my view, important that we hear from folks that are on the side streets so we get the design right. And so if we have your feedback to say, well, it should be this or it should be that, or we need to change this or change that, that can be helpful to make sure that it does help all the side streets as well. So I really appreciate you being here and I'm glad that you are, but the voting is to me not the most important part. The most important part is getting the design right, because if we don't get the design right, then it doesn't matter how the vote goes, in my opinion.
Okay, I know this has nothing to traffic calming, but I wanted to know, where do your district ends? And where do her district start? Because on the voting card, it says, I'm in District 5. But she's covering Slayton Drive, which is District 8.
That's true. So we're still working in the council districts that were established in 2011 right now. So in 2011, District 5, which is my district, ends at the creek. But in 2023, after the election in August, District 5 is going to stretch up past Hart, up into, I don't know where the exact boundaries are. It goes all the way up to due west, and then when they change it after the election in 2023. So the answer to your question is today, your council member is Councilmember Van Reese, but whoever is elected to District 5 in August of 2023 will be your council member after that.
That's one of the reasons we wanted to do this together, because it's such a weird transitional phase, and I know that, I mean, is anybody in the room who live on Oakwood Avenue?
On screen, I do live on Oakwood Avenue.
So there's, but on half a dozen.
I'm probably on that. I know what's going on.
So I think that being able to work on it together, I absolutely support what Councilman Parker said about getting the design right, particularly at Slate. And finding out whether or not there's any additional vertical measures that we can get to work. Lighting is an issue when we're working directly with it. We don't want to wait another section. So there's other things that we together while we figure this part out.
Can y'all get that brush as we coming down? Before we get Slayton? Can y'all get that brush put?
I talked with NDOT today about that, and we're going to look at that. That's right.
Wintertime, it kind of evens out, but in the summertime, it really can't.
Yeah, who is actually responsible for that brush? That is a big problem of dumping and littering, and it's grown out of control around this area as well.
That should be NDOT if it's public right of way. So
We talked about earlier the 311 or as soon as you see that obstruction, then you can put it on there and you'll get a tag number. If it's on my side or his side, wherever that is, let us know that you reported it. We can double down on making sure that it's resolved.
especially if you email us, you put that ticket in, you email Councilmember Van Reese or myself or both of us. If you're not sure where it is, that's fine. Then we're aware of it. And then if you email us back in 2 weeks and you say, hey, nothing's happened, we can escalate that day sometimes.
Yeah.
Because then we can send it to them and say, look, somebody reported this and we were hoping to have it addressed and it hadn't been addressed yet. And then they'll get on it quickly if you.
And
We've got a couple other folks in, but
Oh, yes.
the speed cushion,
Mm-hmm.
they got one on Jones Avenue. If I go, there are people that will run over that, it's like they on the race. Or you going over that slow, and they will just quick or running it.
Mm-hmm.
He said that type of doesn't will not work.
They are fast and furious.
that hill really.
If you go, if you look into the case studies or do something of that nature, it might lower it down with combination of some type of cushion.
Mm-hmm.
But just those speed bumps along, nah.
Okay. There are some people that don't care, or aren't affected, they don't mind the really rough ride over them.
Is there such technology that when you have those radar detectors that will post your speed and you saw somebody going over there, is there some type of technology to take a picture of your license plate? Is there such a thing?
We do not do that, no.
I'm just asking. Have you seen that type of technology?
There are folks that think that's a good idea within Metro. We think we need state authorization to put that program in place. I'm one of the people who thinks that automated enforcement would be a good thing. But we don't have the legal authority to do it right now. It's my understanding, the last time I've asked about it. So I think that's the direction that we should head. But it's, we're not there. It's not, I don't, just being honest with you.
I'll be honest, it's like a transportation portal. Somebody with drugs, seen that, pick up, stolen vehicle.
Because it's kind of off the beaten path.
Mhm.
And it feels, yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Right. And we're hoping with some traffic calming, it's a less desirable, racetrack. Yes, we have a question in the back. Yeah, I mean, that would be a lot of cameras and all of, the city. What we're trying to do is physically address the street, with physical measures that are going to slow drivers down. But your comments are heard for sure.
To we, and just because I represent the neighborhood, I'm not. We all suffered a loss. I mean, there's a loss of life. And we cannot ignore the emotions and the anger and the opportunity to make that life's loss not mean something. And so this is a process that so far is working. But it's a process that takes so long because government takes so long. I think the most immediate thing that Councilmember Parker and I are trying to do is to solve lighting issues, crosswalk paint, any sort of vertical issues that NDOT can put, all while this traffic calming study is underway. Because there's two different things, right? So I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the loss this neighborhood suffered so recently. And an acknowledgement that this city with so many streets and so many problems is taking too long to address these issues, but that we are trying to do that together. And I don't know any other way to do it other than this way. We all know, I think you all know, we've got, another development meeting on the 16th of February about the Bethwood Commons Phase 2, and that developer is willing to put some money in that SP to make some additional investments in safety on that area. And so I think that if we combine all of these things, we can roll it out. So that between now and next year, we have a safer street.
But then you add more traffic. Yeah.
Suffer a lot. Because of the problems that- I understand. But I appreciate could be in the process of but incident is a result. So here's what I'm side streets. not a neighborhood. So. Pie chart. 50%. Several different combinations. That's an entire pie chart side of it. That's amounts to the same price. But because it's smaller fractions, it's not prioritized. That gets ignored, like our tax. So it is.
Yeah, we have to devise a prioritization methodology that allows us to address or scale all streets in the county. So I understand that you think that it's too skewed towards speed, but that's really where the danger lies, right? Yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely. Mhm. Right. Mm-hmm.
That needed the intersection. But that also means paper. Right. And back at them 10. That's all.
Yeah.
Are y'all gonna put on Oakwood and then keep encouraging building these houses?
Yeah.
If you got Oakwood gonna go up, we just heard that Slayton, which been a dead end for the 33 years I've been on that street. Now you're gonna open that up into a cul-de-sac and put more houses on that street. So we got more traffic coming down, going on all these little side streets where y'all put, not necessarily y'all, but where they building all these houses. All three of those streets was dead end streets. You put all the apartments up on the hill, we had to deal with that. Now you finna put houses on all three of the little dead end streets. More traffic on Oakwood.
And then this is,
And
and
I asked for that. There's a need for Oakwood Park to continue to be continue to have. You don't want the backwards, I'll tell him not to spend it. You don't want the development, so. He gave a donation to the Parks Foundation. They asked, the Parks Foundation says, how do you want to spend it Oakwood? I said, I've been told that we need new backwards. That doesn't have the Parks Department. If you don't want $100,000 investment in a park, that money.
and you don't know who all is in that park. The people that use that park now, I think it's being upgraded for the people up that hill. Those condos and stuff. It's not for the people that's been living there, because they've had so many shootings and stuff in that park in the past. They didn't upgrade that park with us. That's for the new people.
We will disagree on that.
But
Comes time for phase 2 to be in front of planning houses. We're still talking about that. Stay in We will continue this discussion at that meeting on the 16th. I invite all of you to show.
so,
It's just,
To-
it's 20 down, sorry.
to bring,
20, you said 20, but y'all. That was 4 years.
to bring it back, here, you know, this is our opportunity to,
Listen to the people. Always be. There, you don't live there, we have to live there.
well, we're gonna talk about the concept plan, but I think you have a comment.
Y'all talking about traffic calming and all, which is fine, but you're missing the point. The reason why you have so much traffic going up and down Oakwood is because they cannot get out on Trinity Lane. So they have to come down Oakwood to get out. And they have no other way to go, because traffic backed up so bad at Trinity Lane, they never get out. So they got to come down Oakwood, and they speed and come down Oakwood. Now, if you want to do something, you can put a stop sign or something at your lane when they're coming down that hill. That's what solves those problems in the traffic calming.
And I used to say, when I was working for TDOT for years,
Mm-hmm.
and he was working for TDOT for years, I used to say on Trinity Lane and Oakwood up there, since that light is not working for the traffic to come out, why couldn't they can't just put a light right there? But they said it wasn't enough coming from the other side, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, those two items are something that NDOT can look at. You know, there are lots of factors that we look at on when and where to put all-way stops, but, I can take that back to the department.
Using the sign, using the parking frame. Like her. So is there a curate a program or a study or a tool? One side streets that traffic calming, like so that we can start working on those. I respect NDOT. I'm a beautification commission. I work with NDOT. I know what all those. However, not priorities.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We can do all of the things. People will still do it. That's not able to control any type of technology. Start making people. Start to work for pedestrians. Time when you're coming to this area. Start getting silent and lights up. Let's start working closely. And do that as well.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what we're talking about, doing, is what, Councilmember Van Reese said was, in addition to this is the traffic calming, program and discussion, but these two council members are working with NDOT for other improvements for this area, that may be beyond. Did you have something to say?
I know that we want to at least have a chance for Ms. Birch to talk us through this plan. But this lady I know has had her hand up for quite some time now. I just wanted to say, because you haven't spoken. So.
Well, that's gonna be the only street that's gonna be taken. They're gonna do. I think they're gonna Allen, and they fly down that street at nighttime off, just like they do Oakwood. So we're just gonna do one and the other.
The application that was submitted was only for Oakwood.
Right, and that's how our program works, is we look at the streets that have been requested, and those are the streets we study. Sure. So we're going to have another. Mhm.
Like, I'm pretty small. Talking about these speed bumps and stuff like that. And like, I walk into school. Have to move out. This is not a problem. This is
Right.
really a problem.
So, mhm. So NDOT is going to have a new application window for traffic calming. We do applications twice a year. So any of you can apply for traffic calming for any of your other streets, and they will be evaluated if they've been requested. I'm trying to think. It's TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov is our traffic calming website, and that's where you can find the application. You can also look and see if your street's already been requested for traffic calming. So I would encourage you, if you live on one of these side streets that's also having issues, to apply for traffic calming. Like I said, we have, it's a popular program. We do have good funding from council to apply traffic calming, but it still, couldn't possibly reach all of these 400 plus streets that desire traffic calming. So we have to narrow the projects in a way so that we can get them done and move on to the next one. So that's how we do it with this application program. So our application window, I don't have the dates yet, but it's coming up in the next couple of months, I believe. So
I can quickly, Amy. This is Gil Thomas. I'm the program manager for the traffic calming program. I was just going to add on to that. If you do go to our website, we have just added a new feature. We have a traffic calming updates subscription you can sign up for. If you'll just enter your email there, you'll be able to get all of our updates, and that one of those updates coming very soon will be when the application window opens. And we're hoping to see it, as Amy said, in the very near future. But if you want more exact dates, if you can sign up for that, you'll get all the updates you need.
And Amy, there's a few questions in the chat. A few questions in the chat. Do we want, are they related to the program or the plan?
The program and the
Program and the plan. Yeah. Why don't I go over the plan real quick, and then we can come back to questions. How does that sound for everyone? So, I've been listening to the feedback about the speed cushions and so forth, but this was our first shot at what we thought was a good approach to traffic calming on Oakwood. So just to orient you first, north is to your left, and East Trinity is this street over here on the right. And Oakwood is obviously blue, and so the limits are up to Bethwood Drive. So the yellow symbols are just symbols to show a speed cushion configuration. It's not necessarily a 2, it might be 3, depending on the width of the street at that location. But we're looking at one set right off of East Trinity, just north of Norton. And then another set is it's about 300-foot spacing. So, north of Wesley is the first one, and then north of Norton is the second one. So those are pretty well spaced. And then, as you know, the street starts to curve, and you've got the hill and the curvature. So we do have limitations on where we can put the vertical devices. They just can't go on steep grades, so that's why you don't see them there.
But the hill is the problem.
Right. So, maybe we could put some more radar feedback sign or something like that, or move the radar feedback sign, but we are proposing to put another one going in, or a radar feedback sign in the northbound direction, just as you're approaching Sladen. So that would be the flashing device that flashes your speed if you're going above the posted speed limit. And then another set of speed cushions before you reach Sladen in advance of the crosswalk. And then another set of cushions between Sladen and Allenwood. And another set between Allenwood and Bethwood Drive. So all in all, it's 5 sets of cushions along that length of street, and a radar feedback sign coming down the hill, off the hill from the apartments going towards Slayton. And then with these cushion devices, there may be some different configurations, like the white vertical posts to keep drivers from going around, trying to go around them in the parking lane, things like that. That's like what you see on Trinity, and maybe even, we would be looking to see if we needed to put any on the center line to keep people from going around them that way. So that's our proposed plan. But we're here to gather feedback on this plan and hear from you all about what you think is better. But like I said, we do have some limitations on grade where we can't put the vertical devices. That's our plan. And I did hear that there was some people that thought speed tables might be better than speed cushions, so that's something we could look at. Right. We can study that a little harder and see if there's anything in that area we can come up with to do and measure the grades better and see. But like I said, we're coming up on hills on both sides, so that kind of limits us on these vertical devices. But if there's some other narrowing treatment, yes.
When they were talking about the problem, it certainly is live on Oakwood. I live directly across from the Oakwood flats.
Okay.
You can imagine my trouble getting out of my. Something needs to be done right there. That flats, it's like 300 of them, I think, up there, and everybody has to go to work. Some people go out sometime, and it's quite a problem. They come up, they speed around, and they just about missing each other. One coming out, one going in. It's a problem.
Is there for a while there was not a stop sign right there at the entrance, right? Has that put one in since then?
And we've asked for a stop sign at the actual intersection, but you could ask for, they could put a stop sign at.
Still don't have one. I thought that. Yeah. I mean, that's something that's not even the scope of this program. That's just I can get NDOT to do it probably, right?
Right. That wouldn't have to be part of the program at all. It's more of a maintenance issue. Okay, Elaine has some questions from the chat.
There is a question from Robin to see if there's anything that can be done in the short term, like the feedback, the radar feedback, or is this going to take the entire process?
So that's a good question. So the ballots that we do are really for the whole plan, but they're primarily for the vertical measures. We don't necessarily require ballots. If we were only doing radar feedback signs, it wouldn't require a ballot. We would just want to have some agreement with those that are participating and interested that that's what we wanted. Those may not take as long to come in, the radar feedback signs, as the rubberized materials that we use for the speed cushion. So, if they come in, and they could get installed a little faster, but hopefully that answers your question. It's not, they don't necessarily have to wait if those came in earlier. It's more of a, aligning it with the contractor to get it installed, but some of those have been installed much faster than the cushions. Yes, question?
In between the part there, as far as ballots or not needing to wait the entire time, irregardless of the radar feedback, because people know it's not going to stop them. It's just telling them that, yes, you are going too fast. That's just the way they're going to look at it. Is there any way at Slayton Drive, not disregarding anybody else. I mean, maybe even right across from the flats, to have the four-way stop or three-way for her areas, because you have them all coming out.
Mm-hmm.
That stops them up there at the top. Give you a space, a window down here. And the only reason I'm saying that, I try to give as many scenarios, and I can only give you kudos, Van Reese, for maybe 7 years ago. Me and my son were walking to school. I stay on Slayton Drive, going to Tom Joy.
Mhm.
The other parent that lives somewhere in the neighborhood up there, either it's Allenwood, Bethwood, or somewhere. But she dropped her child off and came back down Oakwood. I know what I'm looking for my child to cross the street safely.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear the cars coming way faster than I can see them. So I'm holding him back. He wants to go. I took a step and she stopped at the top of the hill. Her car went sideways until she got to where the little grass is that we see today. And my son froze. And I'm like, there was no reason to be going that fast. Stopping at the top of the hill for her to go sideways to where a little bitty sign is right now. I wrote a letter to every single person I knew that was involved in my area. She responded, literally, I sent it to everybody. My council person, vice mayor, mayor, I mean, anybody that would hear me. Educational department. We have children, regular grown people, elders. That bus stop is right there on that corner. Besides the person who passed recently, when I first moved, there was a young man that got hit before we had a sidewalk put in. There have been 2 other children who have been either knocked unconscious or hurt on their bikes. That intersection at Slayton Drive, and I'm not, again, degrading anybody's other section, that is a main thoroughfare for busing and those kids getting on that bus or going to school. A 4-way stop at the bottom of that hill, some kind of 3-way something, blinking light, whatever can be across from them flats, can help us with this gap until these SCs get taken care of. That would help me and at least half the people I know walking to the bus stop from my street. Just
So-
something soon, and while we're trying to work on late,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if that's possible.
So
Some,
you, yeah.
And, the traffic study that developer got 10 grand on the traffic study should require another look at that intersection. I'm glad. Gil, did you hear that? Because I want that 4-way stop there. It's the only thing, they've got to do their traffic study, they got engineers have to make sure it's safer, that cars aren't gonna like ram into each other, they've got to do something at the top of the hill, the stop sign's coming.
Yeah.
But I think the vertical signage has to be addressed now. And the traffic calming as a additional substitute. But I can, the Councilmember Parker and I can't just say, hey, y'all go put up some stop signs. I've got probably 3 other places in District 8 that I've been begging for stop signs. People have been killed in South Britain. People have been killed at intersections where I really think that we should have stop signs. Got to be some sort of engineering reason why it's not there, and at least we can get NDOT to explain why we can't, and that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, this
Your
is Joe
comments
again.
heard, and I think it'll be part of this study, which is separate from traffic calming. I'll say that we don't consider stop signs or always stop signs traffic calming, because that is meant to stop vehicles because of traffic control at an intersection, not just to slow cars down to slow them down. You know, we're trying to address street design in a different way through these vertical measures or physical measures to slow cars, not necessarily stop them, but.
So one thing about that, Sladen intersection specifically is like, even, you said like lane narrowing, like narrowing that crossing distance with bulb mounts.
Mhm.
I mean, is that within the scope of this program? Like, even if the four-way has to be a different conversation, can we look at pinching the lane widths down there and also just giving people less distance to cross when they're having to cross there?
Mhm.
Like, there is a tremendous like amount of kids and parents that traverse Sladen, because that's kind of the vein that leads up to the neighborhood. There's like a dirt trail that leads to Paulawood from the back of the school, but nobody picks their kid up at the back of the school,
Yeah.
So a lot of people do walk on Sladen, and I think that, talking about narrowing widths and maybe doing some kind of bulb out narrowing to pinch that area down in parallel with the four-way stop conversation, but I think looking at that as part of this, I think could be helpful.
That's good feedback. I think that's something we can look at as we try to refine this this concept. And so we'll determine that. We'll study it. There's bus turning movements we need to pay attention to, things like that. But we can look at that.
Come all the way down, it cuts off. Sidewalk from the flat, it cuts off.
Yeah.
At the end of the flats.
Yeah, where this utility easement is. That's good feedback. Any other questions from the chat, Eleni?
Just a comment, that they want to make sure that we're looking at the whole road, not just the Sladen Drive. Want to make sure that we know that they're still speeding on the side towards Trinity Lane. That looks like
There's
a
another
US
hill there.
Yes. Yes, it does come off of Trinity and down quite a bit and then levels out. We had to look at that as we tried to eye where we could put the cushions between Wesley and Norton. So yes, we're aware of that.
It's that stretch right up. Too much speeding right there, all the one that's. But they're anticipating those two turns, and that's, I remain on. Start making people,
Yeah, I mean, there is one, I think, as you come off the hill, after you're going north on Oakwood and you've passed the flats, there is one pedestrian sign that's, sometimes probably covered by vegetation, but it's there. And, yeah, can that be improved? I think that's something that we can look at. We'll share this with the engineers at NDOT.
Until they look up and go.
So, to bring it back to our concept plan, I believe you say everyone might be okay with the speed cushions or, speed device down, closer to East Trinity, around Norton and Weekly. That might be pretty good. Then some, maybe we look at depending on what NDOT or if there are any other pedestrian improvements or something down at the intersection that's kind of separate from the traffic calming program, we may reposition the radar feedback sign to somewhere else, or put another one in a different location as well. Yes.
Is there a reason it shows cushions versus tables? Is there any type of cushion?
Yeah, we typically use cushions on local streets. Say it again.
Can you do a table versus cushions on that?
Well, on the flat part of the hill, like sort of the top, we can look at that. I'm not sure, I can't say for sure right now, but that's something we can look at to see if there's enough visibility at that.
To cover that section that we're questioning as an alternative is hard. If you move on those cushions and put a table. They're a lot longer.
They're a lot
They're a lot longer.
longer.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
they
you
are.
cover
Right. Yeah, part of.
got 14 feet of tables.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's a lot of space to cover the section that's in question.
The length of them actually makes them a little bit easier to travel over, not as abrupt, but
And you don't have to put section.
we have some things we have to look at, like horizontal curvature and vertical curvature, both. So we'll need to study that and see. But thank you for that comment. Another one?
But it's also a problem, off the other side, where he's coming down that way is real, it's the same and the opposite way, so it needs to go further. Stop it right on him.
No, it goes to Bethwood.
But if y'all already gonna be on Oakwood, we just can't go on up there.
We typically look at the section that's been requested in the application. So that's kind of the bounds of our study.
They stopped it there,
Mhm.
and they didn't go all the way up there. Is there any way to know, like, who or how the application, or is it like a secret thing?
No, it's no. It,
I mean, I just didn't know, because I was just like.
usually once we're at this point, nobody really cares about the application anymore because we're just excited to be included in the program. It's not.
If I can say.
Hey,
just-
Amy,
and
can you hear me?
I used to live on Manette right off Paulawood there. It was a resident of Paulawood that submitted the application initially. I do think, if there's not like an engineering issue with, the entrance to the park is not covered by this stretch, like if there is any ability to look north of Bethwood and see if there's maybe something that we could do there. I don't know if that's remotely feasible or if it's certainly not, or if you could just see if it's possible to cover the park entrance and a little closer up to Bullock.
I'll see. How about that? We'll have our answer. We'll have our answer.
Yeah, I was, I didn't hear the initial question of how far to extend. I was just trying to get some input on that. But I think that it was covered. And we'll look into it for sure and see what we can do. Anything north of Bethwood.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you. Especially, this one is supposed to be with them. That traffic is supposed to come out on Oakwood?
That's what phase one, would no longer be a dead end street and.
But it's gonna come out on Helen. But you still.
I don't know how long it's gonna be. we can ask them about that when they come.
A couple of years. We don't need them over there, y'all can put them somewhere. People don't need them over there. Not right, without the people that live.
Solve the problems and as housing.
Solve the problem, no problem, but y'all don't live in it. Like the bird.
So,
I do know, y'all, just putting, I know there's a lot going. Some fan base has a meeting for that.
It's trying to be honest about, because we live there. Paul don't live. People that live to have a say in this, not right.
right.
You don't have a say.
And I think,
You represent us, and we telling you we don't want it.
And 3 meetings on the development. 2017.
And my daughter always comes, so I think, we try to get everybody to show.
But does it really matter what the residents think? White Nashville is growing. If it's a pot of grass, they're gonna put something on it whether you like it or not.
But it's
That's
not,
the bottom line.
not right.
No, it's not. 17.
What community? Because these are the people that live here.
so we're, we understand that you all have, so we let's come back to this street, because what we're really talking about is changing the behavior on this street now before any development comes, so we can go ahead and change the street to be work better for the traffic that's on the street now and in the future, whether that changes.
Design.
Okay.
Looking at maybe adding another radar feedback in between Norton and West. On that end.
A radar feedback sign between Norton and Wesley. We typically wouldn't do that so close, but maybe somewhere between Paula Wood and Norton, in that direction. But we'll look at that. Thank you for that comment. We'll take note of it and see. So in general though, are we okay with some vertical measures? We know they're not going to solve all the problems, but they're going to change some behavior for some people.
Yes, ma'am.
She said that barcode on it, that you click on ballots on that.
Yes. Yes. So
Going to a certain person or a certain area.
So on the ballot, it will have the QR code so you can do it online. Or there's a phone number and you will call Gil, who we've heard from in this meeting, and Gil will answer your call. You can leave him a voicemail if you don't reach him. He will call you back. He's excellent. He's really responsive, and he'll take your vote or guide you through it either way. It will look very similar to that. It will be a postcard like that. And so if you can't use the QR code, you can have, there's a phone number that reaches a person. So we won't send ballots out until after our second meeting. So we're going to have another meeting. We're going to go back to our desks and do our engineering and do some more field work to take into account the feedback we've gotten and make a more detailed plan about a little bit more detail about exactly where these devices would go and what they would look like and the signs that go with it and all of that. And then we will send meeting cards about a second meeting. And we'll do another one of these. Yes, that's a reasonable timeline. Yes. So,
Make sure everybody takes an hour to see them back.
to receive the ballot,
So I'm curious of
Mm. so, we send them to all the property owner addresses on the metros. Yeah. If, so, luckily she has you, and you're gonna make her aware of the next meeting in case she doesn't get it, and vice versa. And right. I mean, they are white note card, pieces of note card, they can get kind of lost, but we try really hard to get them out to everyone. That's why we send them in the mail. Right. What do you live between Sladen and Oakwood? Yep. So we did extend it. So you may not have gotten one north of Sladen yet.
I'll ask.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is, just to go back to your question about the postcards and everything, when the ballots go out and they do have the unique ID, if your neighbor didn't get his or her card, that you got yours and you're asking them about it and telling them to vote, they can call the number, which is Gil, and he can assist them in voting, whether or not they have their card. So there's a way around it. We can, but we're that's the best way we know how to reach people is through the mail, though, instead of email lists that we don't have. All right, so I'm going to try to round this out here. We're still, NDOT maybe working on some other specific treatments at the intersection of Sladen, but regarding traffic calming in this plan, are we generally in favor of the vertical measures? And it's our, we're going to lean on our engineering expertise and experience about exactly what that device is and how they lay out and everything. But, we've heard your feedback. But what we really want to know is, are vertical measures something that the neighborhood is going to support and wants to see installed on your street? So we're going to take that plus the feedback. We're going to retool this, refine it, do some more investigations. But knowing that it sounds like we really want cars to slow down on Oakwood, improve safety, and we believe that the vertical measures are the most effective way to do that. Again, they're not gonna get every person to slow down and treat them appropriately. There are going to be those outliers, but in general, if we can begin to change the behavior with these physical measures, we think that's the way to go. So we've heard that there's a request to extend it further to the north, perhaps some additional signage, and maybe radar feedback signs on that section. We're going to look at potential of putting some device at the top of the hill. We really have to study hard about the visibility of as you approach that device, because and the signage that goes with it and all of that. But those things we'll look at as we make this a more refined plan, and we'll be back with a second meeting to show that to you. Yes.
I just have one question. And please, I have no expertise in what you guys do, but anywhere in this, the gap, is it even feasible or is it outdated? And again, I'm sorry, I have no technical words. I just call it the vroom vrooms, like when you're on the interstate.
Oh, the rumble strips.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We don't have a way to make it larger or bigger, and that's not so much of the vertical
Mm-hmm.
restraint?
This program in years past has done some rumble strips, and didn't get a lot of great feedback from them. In fact, some asked us to remove them because they're loud and noisy at your front door and your windows. So we don't really put them in our toolbox, anymore because of that. And I think some people found that the faster you drive over them, the less effect you feel on those. So these are those, if you're familiar, the like the strips, the lines of strips,
Yes.
that are, they're used in advance of intersections, in advance of curves, to like remind people, wake them up, that they're approaching something that deserves their attention, close attention, is to slow down. They have great purpose and use, but sometimes for traffic calming, we haven't found them to be as effective. Any other questions? Any other questions online? Anybody online want to ask questions? Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone being here. Again, I'm Amy Birch, and I have my contact info here. Also, Gil Thomas's contact. He is the program manager for NDOT. He has been on this call and listening to all of your questions and feedback, and he's is an excellent resource if you need to reach him as well, or me. And we will work on our plan and come back to you. Thank you for your participation and being involved. Thank you, council members.
So